The Lavender Murders, Case File 8.
In the sun-drenched town of Anis-sur-Mer, in the south of France, where the scent of lavender and sea salt fills the air, 3 women disappeared within a single month. The police said the cases were unrelated, but a retired detective from Paris, who had come here to escape the chaos, found something strange in the files, something that turned everything upside down. Welcome back to Case Number ? Every week, we uncover the darkest mysteries, the unsolved crimes, and the stories that will send chills down your spine. But today, we need your help. We're about to dive into one of the most disturbing cases we've ever investigated, the Lavender murders. Victim number 1, Sophie Dupont, 34 years old. A single mother of a 7-year-old daughter named Chloe. She worked night shifts at St. Christophe Hospital. Neighbors said they last saw her on September 12th at 11 p.m., cycling to her night shift. No one ever saw her alive again. Victim number 2, Camille Lefebvre, 27 years old, a piano teacher at the town's music school. On September 20th, after her last private lesson, she was seen closing the classroom lights for the final time. Her car was found 2 days later in the parking lot of Saint-Michel Church, with a bouquet of lavender wilted on the passenger seat. Victim number 3, Hélène Lemaire, 42 years old, a meticulous bank accountant who left the Crédit Agricole branch at exactly the same time every day. On September 28th, she walked out of the bank as usual, but instead of heading home, she vanished. The bank's security cameras captured her final image, a woman in a beige coat, getting into a black car that no one recognized. Sophie's body was found 3 days later in an abandoned lavender field on the outskirts of town. Camille's remains were discovered 5 days later, locked in the trunk of her own car. But Hélène's body was never found, until the retired detective received an envelope, slipped under his door with no stamp and no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper with a handwritten message. "Where did you look for the 3rd body, detective?" The local police of Anis-sur-Mer investigated each case separately. Sophie's husband, a fisherman, Camille's fiancé, a carpenter, and Hélène's colleague, the bank manager, all were suspects. But no one had solid evidence. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses. Dead ends everywhere. Until the retired detective, who had spent decades at the Paris Police Department, noticed something strange. All 3 women, exactly 5 days before they disappeared, had called the same public phone booth at the town square. 3 different phone numbers, 3 different women, but the same phone booth. And when he traced those calls, they all connected to one place, the local police station.
The detective used his old connections to access the police call logs. He discovered that all 3 calls were received and logged by a single officer, Colonel Jean-Pierre Laval, the same officer who was assigned to Sophie's case. As he dug deeper, he found that Laval had access to unsolved cases in neighboring towns as well. Women who had disappeared but whose bodies were never found. The pieces started falling into place. The killer was none other than Colonel Laval himself, a police officer who used confidential information to select his victims and then assigned himself to their cases to mislead the investigation. The detective gathered all the evidence. He decided to send everything to the Central Police Headquarters in Marseille. But when he returned home the next day, he found a fresh body lying at his doorstep. This time, the victim was Colonel Laval, with a single bullet wound to the temple, and in his hand, a note. "We always sacrifice one of our own." The case of Colonel Laval's death was officially closed. The police called it a suicide, but the retired detective knew better. He knew that Laval had been murdered by someone who wanted to expose a much darker conspiracy. 3 murders, 1 killer, and 1 staged suicide. But one question remains unanswered. Who inside the police force eliminated Colonel Laval? And why? Was there a secret organization behind it all? Or a serial killer who wanted to eliminate a rival? The detective couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He couldn't stop thinking about that note. We always sacrifice one of our own. And then he received another letter. This time it wasn't a threat. It was an invitation to uncover the truth. And what he found next would change everything. The old lavender factory had been abandoned for years. Once a symbol of the town's prosperity, now it was just a ghost of the past. The detective parked his car a mile away and walked through the overgrown fields. The scent of lavender was still in the air, but now it smelled like death. He found the door slightly open. Inside, the darkness was absolute. He turned on his flashlight and stepped into the unknown. The floor was covered in dust and dried lavender flowers, and then he saw it, a desk in the middle of the room with a single file on it. His name was written on the cover, Detective Philippe Moreau. Someone had been waiting for him.
The file was thick. Inside, there were photographs, police reports, and handwritten letters. The detective started reading, and with every page, his heart raced faster. The file contained information about 5 more women who had disappeared in the last 10 years. All of them had one thing in common. They had all called the same phone booth in the town square, just like Sophie, Camille, and Elaine. But there was something else. A letter addressed to the detective himself. It read, "You are not the first person to investigate this case. I was the first, and I paid the price with my life. My name is Captain Marie Lefebvre. I was Laval's partner, and I know who killed him. Follow the trail of lavender. It will lead you to the truth before they find you." The detective knew he had to move fast. If Captain Lefebvre had died for this investigation, he would be next. But he couldn't stop. He had to find the truth, not just for the victims, but for himself. He traced the trail of lavender through the town's history. He visited the old lavender fields, the abandoned distilleries, and the cemeteries where the forgotten dead lay. Each place gave him a new clue. Each clue led him deeper into the darkness. He learned that the lavender trade in this town had once been controlled by a secret society, a group of wealthy men who had used the lavender fields as a cover for something much darker. They called themselves the Lavender Brotherhood. The Lavender Brotherhood. The name sent a chill down his spine. He found an old newspaper article from 1998, hidden in the town's archives. It told the story of a wealthy lavender baron who had been found dead in his mansion, poisoned by his own wife. But the article was censored. Many names were blacked out. The detective realized that the Brotherhood had been covering up their crimes for decades. And the women who had died, Sophie, Camille, Elaine, and the 5 others, they were not random victims. They had all been employees of the Lavender Brotherhood's companies. They had all discovered the dark truth, and they had all been silenced. The detective was getting closer, but someone was watching him. He could feel it. He was no longer the hunter, he was the hunted. The detective stared at the badge in his hand. The note was clear. The Lavender Brotherhood wasn't a secret society of businessmen. It was the police force itself, his own people, his own colleagues, and he was standing right in the middle of their lair. Colonel Laval had been one of them, and he was murdered because he tried to leave. Now the detective knew he was next on the list, unless he acted first, but he didn't run. That night, he broke into Laval's mansion. In the basement, he found a notebook, a diary that revealed everything. The next meeting of the Brotherhood was set for midnight at the old church. The detective arrived at the church, but this time he was prepared. A small recorder was hidden in his pocket, ready to capture every word, every confession. There, standing before him, was the man no one suspected, the mayor himself. The face of the city, the face of the Brotherhood. The mayor confessed with pride. He had ordered every single murder: Sophie, Camille, Helene, all of them. They had discovered the truth that the Brotherhood was running drugs and weapons through the Lavender trade, and they had to be silenced. The detective smiled. He held up his phone. Every word, every confession, it was being broadcast live to a journalist and federal police. The mayor's face turned pale. Minutes later, the church doors exploded open. Federal agents swarmed in. The mayor and every member of the Brotherhood were arrested on the spot. Weeks later, the trial began. The mayor and 17 other members were sentenced to life in prison. Justice had finally arrived. The names of Sophie, Camille, Helene, and the 5 others were finally cleared. Their honor was restored. Justice had been served. Before leaving the town, the detective visited the graves of the 9 women. He placed a single lavender flower on each one and whispered, "No one will silence you again." The town was free. The Brotherhood was gone. But the detective never forgot one thing. In a world of power and secrets, the truth is never truly safe. The end, or maybe just the beginning. Thank you for watching this episode of Case Number 8. If you enjoyed this mysterious journey through the dark secrets of the Lavender Brotherhood, then subscribe to our channel right now.